Hi, Rich Hoffman here. I haven't spoke much about the Lakota school district, northern suburb of Cincinnati, just outside the I-275 loop along I-75. Very large district, one of the largest in the state of Ohio. When you talk about public education, they're one of them. There's a lot of talk out there, a lot of anxiety that I said was going to come all along, because the funding model was never right. The teacher unions were never aligned to reality. They're very progressive groups. They lean their members always to the left. All these government public sector unions have the same problem. And now that DOGE is out there doing its thing, and we're talking about major cuts, and I told everybody when the Trump administration came in, there was going to be major cuts to the Department of Education, and education was going back to the states, and there was going to be more competitive models, and it had to happen. Always had to happen. Competition in education, and I've been talking about this topic for a long time, and no one listened. No one wanted to listen. I have tried to give the Lakota school system, along with other people, but I've tried to organize it best I could. Not just with Darby Bodie, the most recent conservative school board member, that they tried to make sure that they found some legal way to keep her from being on the school board, even though she was voted by the public to manage the school board. These tricky little games that they play in these school boards all around are radicalized, and the only people that stay on them or come to them are people with a wild leftist ideology, or they adopt a wild leftist ideology because they like the free babysitting service that comes with public education. And they want to give themselves the illusion that the service is giving them something beneficial. So it's always been on a track to fall apart, the public education model. And in my school district of Lakota, where I pay a lot of money in taxes, as every property owner in Butler County, Ohio does, for these school systems, and what they provide just isn't very good. It's not been a very good product, and it's taken people a long time to arrive at that point, to admit that to themselves. And the problem, the dilemma they have, public education, is that a proportion of the public now is ready to admit that they don't like the product, and if it's just 5 or 6% of your total population, and they're looking for homeschool options, or they're looking to take their kid to some charter school, some private school. The debate the public schools have had over equity and inclusion on those kinds of things, that poor kids need to have the same advantages as rich kids, and not everybody can go to a private school. Then they've been fighting against the voucher program to allow more kids to go to their destination of choice. It was always coming to a collision, and that collision actually occurred a few years ago. And Lakota, in response to that, we tried to give them conservative school board members, and they ran them off with all kinds of the same kind of lawfare tactics that were applied to President Trump. And it was broader than Darby Bodie. And so there's always been an attempt to give school board members conservative representation, which more reflected our community, as opposed to what they have now, which is a pretty radical leftist school board. And everybody told me, and I was up in Columbus, Ohio for the State of the State speech with the governor, and this was the whole topic up there, especially since Lakota is such a large district. And on that very day of the State of the State speech, they were going to take a vote to join a lawsuit with other school districts against the school funding model in Ohio, because essentially because of the expansion of school vouchers, they proclaim that they're losing like $9 million out of their $215 million a year revenue stream. They've lost $9 million, and they're having a hissy fit about it, and they want to be able to get that corrected so they can go launch a school levy to go get a facilities plan so they can build a bunch of new schools, which is absolutely ridiculous. And so they think they're going to pass a levy to do it, to go get new schools built, and they're just absolutely out of their minds. And what they think about how you fund these public schools, because they're in a declining market, and because competition is going to drive the narrative for the future. And that's certainly what I told everybody even 4 or 5 years ago when they thought that Trump was out of office. I said, look, guys, he's coming back. Trump's going to be back. And if not Trump, it'll be somebody else. Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be the next governor of Ohio. And you're going to have governors in all these states that are going to be very much competitive based. And they're going to bring that structure because obviously the old structure of government run unions hasn't worked. And they just keep asking for more money. Their plan for all their budgetary needs is just keep asking for more money, keep passing levies. And at some point, you're going to hit a saturation point. And in Lakota, they did that, I would say a decade ago, but they certainly, in the modern times, modern age, is certainly what's happened now. A few years ago, at the height of the Darby Bodie controversies, when a bunch of us in our community got together to put a few school board members on to give a 3-2 majority, all the radicals went to work on all the personality traits to sabotage the effort, and they thought that was going to be the end of the story. Well, they got their liberal school board people on, and what happened? Well, you could have put conservatives weren't going to be able to be on the school board. So let me just tell everybody who's critical of that, because I heard about the State House. Well, we had school board people that were conservative, and we lost them. Well, they were never going to survive that system because that system is built for one thing. The school boards and the teacher unions only have one mode of management to their availability. They don't manage things through competitive need. They're not going to go out there and compete with these charter schools or other school choice options as they expand under the Trump administration, which is clearly going to happen. Clearly going to happen when Vivek Ramaswamy is governor of Ohio. He's going to create a competitive merit-based model that is very good for good teachers, but for the people who aren't so good and are kind of just drifting in life, they're going to struggle to do well because they're not going to be recognized just for sitting on the bench and getting a Super Bowl ring in their school with high pay. That government form of compensation has put us in a bad place, and people are looking to get rid of it. And when I say people, there's a percentage. Whether it's 4%, 5%, 10% of your total population have said, we like Doge. We want to keep seeing this competitive model restructure itself in a way that we can support, because we can't support this mess. We don't like it. So they're asking for changes. And those changes started to consolidate in that Lakota schools with people exercising the charter school ed choice options and take some money from this that's supplied for their kid and take it elsewhere. So Lakotas complain about it because it's hard for them to manage a district because they're so top heavy on cost, because they throw all that money they get essentially into a labor market that is offset in cost because everybody's getting paid on some union scale, not based on how good or competitive or valid they are as teachers. I think speaking to Vivek Ramaswamy about this whole issue, I think he's a lot nicer about it than I am. He likes his teachers. He grew up with some good teachers, and he thinks that teachers have a lot of value. So I think anybody who wants to be a teacher in the state of Ohio should consider that a good sign for the kind of guy that wants to be governor. I think that there's a lot of faults in institutional education that are just problematic for any kind of general culture. But I'm willing to listen if people have good ideas, and I'm willing to support if they want to give it a shot. And he wants to give it a shot. He wants to create a merit-based way of dealing with it. That's great. But I can tell you there was an emergency meeting at Lakota on March 12th, and I drove all the way back from Columbus to attend it because my phone was lighting up with people telling me I needed to be there. I didn't know about it because I've been paying attention to all the Lakota stuff. I got a lot bigger things in the world going on. I don't have kids in the district. All my grandchildren who are in the area are homeschooled because we would never send them to such a disastrous education enterprise to the kinds of things that go on at these public schools, especially Lakota. Lakota is traditionally known as being a great school and a great affluent district, and I don't think that's good enough. So I don't pay much attention to what Lakota does. They take a lot of money that I give them, and they waste it on, I think, liberal politics, and I don't like it. And I don't have a lot of value for the product. I think it produces bad things for society in general. But when I talk to people like Vivek Ramaswamy about it, he's much kinder about it. When I talk to my friend, Senator George Lang, he has a lot more hope for it than I do, and they want to give it a shot. So the school board was going to play a little bit of a trick. They were going to join this lawsuit where they wanted to think through collective action. They could recover or stop some of the budgetary cuts that are coming out of the DeWine administration, that they could reduce the impact those cuts are going to have on their school funding models. And so by throwing a lawsuit out there that costs several $1,000s a month or so many thousands of dollars a year, and being part of that lawsuit that might take 2 or 3 years to settle, they might send a shot across the bow to any kind of funding model cuts. But I'm just telling you, this whole thing with Ed Choice is just the start of the kind of cuts they're talking about seeing. This school choice is going to expand under Trump magnificently, and kids who want to go take their money with them and take it somewhere else are going to be able to do that. So this whole idea of money being attached to the zip code thing is a model from the past. And I am pretty stunned at how ridiculously backwatered and out of touch with reality that the Lakota school board and the new administrators are on the issue. They've been warned, they've been told as kindly as possible that this is going to be a problem, and their resolution was to get rid of conservative school board members and replace them with bigger liberals. And just like in blue states, we see upside down costs everywhere where Democrats run things. And these people would say, well, I live in Lakota, I'm not exactly a liberal, I consider myself, I vote for Republican most of the time, except I didn't want to vote for Trump. That's what they say. They want to think that, but they are essentially blue staters, and they run their stuff with top-heavy costs, and they never go back and find the way to figure out how they can be more competitive and do more with less. And that's the key to the future in public education, because the model that we've had that was controlled by the labor unions, exacerbated by the Department of Education, created by Jimmy Carter in 1979, was never good, and it was always broken, and it's going to stay broken. You have to reform it with something completely different. So if you want to save your local public school, you need to make it work more like a charter school. You need to make it work more like a competitive model where there is merit-based pay scales, where people are actually competing for the right to be the best in those cultures. And in that way, the kids benefit because they have the best teachers. And as a district, you can't just sit back and put some paint on a building and say it's a great building and spend a bunch of money on new doors and say we're great because we have brand new buildings. You got to actually be pretty good. You got to actually be good administrators. You got to be good teachers. You got to run it with a good school board, and you can't just be a pacifist sitting back and throwing money at problems, which is what they've been doing. And because they can't even afford out of a $250 million school budget, which is what Lakota has, for one school district, $250 million is their budget, and most of it goes to salaries to union employees, and they're way over the top on the amount of work they do. And this is the kind of stuff that Doge is pointing out, and this is what we've been doing in the Lakota district forever. Is we were Doge before there was a Doge, and the kind of anger that went to Elon Musk used to go to me, and it still goes to me. But I never really cared, and it's just been recently where it's been fashionable to have so many people hate you. If they hate you, you're doing a good job because they're a rocker. So anyway, go to this meeting. I rush back from Columbus. I show up to kind of hear what's going on to see if they're going to make the vote. They invited a bunch of public officials, some representatives. They had Senator Lang on a Skype call from he was out of town. I had Jennifer Gross, Representative Gross for the Lakota district, and then Thomas Hall, Representative Hall. And they were all on talking about this issue, and two of those people I had just spoken to up at the Capitol, so they were still busy up there, but I rushed back so I could at least go to the meeting with my wife. And it was a long day and a late night, and I kind of knew where their minds were. And the whole question that Lakota wanted was, well, can we get on the record that we're going to get can we get our representatives, our elected representatives, to make a declarative sentence on whether they're going to stand by vouchers or reject them? And when all three of them said, yeah, well, voters want vouchers, voters want choice, and their vouchers are going to be here to stay. And it's going to expand with school choice. So that led the new superintendent, of Lakota. I don't know how she's going to be. She seemed like a pretty nice person, but you know, it's still the verdict early on her. She's the replacement for the person that Matt Miller used to be the superintendent, and the next one after him was this person. So I hadn't had a chance to meet her yet. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, but she seemed a little like a typical superintendent model, which is just go out and sell for more money, ask for more money from the public and sell tax levies, and don't manage your school district. You know, the new treasurer, he seemed like a pretty okay guy. I don't know, we'll see. But the school board members, the new ones that replaced Darby and replaced Linda O'Connor, and some of these other characters that have been out there, I wasn't surprised to see how left the school board had become. And listen to them talk, you just can't help but shake your head and say, where do these people get these goofy ideas? So let me answer the question that they came up with, which is, well, we don't believe that people are taking the charter school option because they're fleeing the district because they don't like our product. They don't like the Lakota product. And I think that what you have to understand is that if you have 8%, 12% of your total population that is not happy with the woke politics that has been very much plastered all over the news with Lakota, and the Lakota way of dealing with it is anybody who pointed it out, they want to get rid of. They didn't try to solve the problem because it comes with the teacher unions. It comes with a radicalized workforce that associates themselves with government employment. So people don't like that, and they don't want to have their kids exposed to transsexual politics, leftist, wild Democrat politics, and some of the issues that have permeated public schools all over the country. They'd rather have their kids homeschooled and forfeit the money they're throwing to the Lakota schools, and then pay on top of that for a kid to go to a private school. So they're getting double dinged on their taxation, which is already extraordinarily high because Lakota's in an affluent district that takes a lot of money with property tax. So it's a disaster on all fronts as far as that goes. But you know, the way the funding model is gone is, why are people accepting vouchers, and why would they want school choice when they got a perfectly good school right in their backyard? Why would they want to drive their kid across town to a better school? Because in a competitive model, that's why George Lang said to them, he warned them, you know, the woke politics is getting everybody in trouble, and if Lakota wants to be a good school, it needs to be a good school. It needs to stop playing the woke politics and represent what the community's willing to pay for. And when you try to push that down and harass them, because as soon as he said that, the audience erupted in dismay to try and shout him down, to try and make it sound, this is what people don't want to do. When people come to a district, they move to a nice district, they want to be in a nice district. They don't want their kid exposed to a bunch of crazy radical leftist politics. And when the school board members represent that, and then the way they make you feel if you go against what they want is they harass you and shout you down in these meetings. What do you think that's going to do to people? It makes them want to leave the district. And if they have a house they've already invested in and they're not going to get value for their home on sales in the market, if that's not an option for them, then what do you think they're going to do? They're going to want to go somewhere else and interact with people who are more aligned to their way of thinking. They don't want to be shouted down in school board meetings. They don't want to see their representatives run off the school board. They don't want to see their people they voted for picked apart in the media with this media campaign that was organized by the people in the school system, by the same people who run the school board, and manipulate everything in the background, thinking that they're going to get away with it. That isn't how you make this stuff work. That's not how you make the spaghetti in the kitchen. You got to take care and have good meatballs and go into the spaghetti. Otherwise, people are going to reject it and go to another restaurant, and they're going to go to another school. The school voucher problem is a condition of poorly run schools that assume that left-wing politics would dominate, and that school boards would be able to keep criticism down. They could get rid of public records and not have anybody express themselves, so they could control the narrative and then therefore control the cost and the way the cost came to them. And when you expand the voucher system, it forces everybody to get more competitive, which is exactly what Senator George Lang said at the meeting. Now, we all knew that the whole meeting was a formality. They were going to listen to these representatives come and give a good pitch, but they all did a good job on giving a good pitch. And I think it made everybody second guess their vote at the end. But the vote was always going to be that they were going to join the lawsuit. And they were going to hope that this lawsuit would give them collective power. And I'm just telling you, it's going to go down the road, it's going to go through court, it's going to lose in court. because you can't financially attach people to funding on these zip codes. It's going to be found unconstitutional eventually in the way that they have the school funding model. There was analysis during this meeting on how the Constitution reads. I'm just telling you that people are not guaranteed to buy a bad product. And if they're hoping they're going to win that out in court, they're just smoking crack. That is not how it's going to go down. So I think that the representatives that we had made a great point. They all did a good job of articulating the position correctly. And when the whole thing was done, the meeting was done pretty much, they took a vote, and it was a 3-2 decision. It was, I call him the bobblehead because he made a bobblehead of himself on his campaign when he first ran as Doug Horton. He's one of the new school board members. Not the brightest match in the box, but whatever. He was the first one who advocated for this lawsuit, and he went out and was very boisterous about it. Then the second one, I don't know, she's a new one. I think her name is French. The new lady, I don't know her very well at all because she's new. So she voted for it, and then Kelly Casper voted in favor of this thing. And then Julie Schaefer at the very end said she was going to vote no along with Isaac Adai. So you had two no votes, 3 yes votes. Julie Schaefer, under normal circumstances, would have voted yes, but she didn't need to because they already had the votes after Kelly Casper did it. And now they've signed up to join this lawsuit, which is essentially a bunch of screaming, crybaby schools that are protesting the funding model and their lack of management of it. You're given $250 million by all kinds of different means, and you can't even manage your costs. With that, you're just asking for more, and you want to build all kinds of new schools, and you want to go out and raise taxes on people who are already overtaxed for a product they don't really like, and it's most people, a lot of people, think is corrupting the next generation of children. And there's nothing that the public schools have done to really show that they're doing anything better or have a tracked trajectory to improve it. They're just hoping to keep funding it to take care of the employees who work for the system, and they hide it behind the kids are getting all this great stuff, and the kids are growing up to be pretty disenchanted with the whole process. And so it's a system that needs reform. It's getting reform under the Trump administration, and these people are delusional as to what they think is going to happen with the school funding model, that they're going to protest and they're going to somehow get some magic money coming out of nowhere. After the State of the State speech, it was interesting to see that we came out of it. DeWine went underground to avoid this protest that was in a rotunda. There were people there, some kind of funding thing that was going on there, asking for more money for more education services, and they were shouting in the rotunda, like that old union model of embarrassing people into submission is going to work. And it might have got them something in the past because people were nice and didn't want conflict, so they might have thrown money their way, just like you do when you see a homeless person. You tend to give them money even if you're like, well, why don't you get a job? You don't even talk about it, you just give them the money so you don't have to interact with them. And that worked for people for a while, but not so much these days. And I think people were so disenchanted with the product that rather than fight those people, they just take their kid to a private school. So when you want to know why people are going to private schools and they're taking school choice options and going to charter schools and looking for options, and Lakota doesn't want to go become competitive to go win people over to want to come to Lakota. They think that they're entitled to the money, and so they're going to sue the state over the right to have whatever money they've lost because of a charter school, because of the ed choice school options for parents. So this protest against parents, the reason why parents are wanting choice is because they don't want to be harassed by these labor union radicals, the same kind of people that poo-pooed Senator George Lang in the meeting. They're the same kind of people that at the State House, you come out of the nice meeting about the state of the state, you come out and there's a bunch of people who have, a lot of these protesters look like they've eaten way too many cookies. They're way too leisurely in their presentation of themselves. And they don't exactly exude confidence on the kind of people you want to give money to. Looks like they could probably go without eating a few meals. And they're out there yelling at you, telling you they demand more money. And you're looking at them like, who wants to give you more money? I think we're going to try and find every way we can to avoid you. So we're going to go to a school that doesn't have people like you. We're going to go to a place that doesn't have left-wing politics as the driver of the criteria. We're going to do anything we can to avoid dealing with you. And that's why you have charter schools. That's why there's options. That's why there's ed choice. That's why school choice is going to expand under Trump. And that's why you see the kind of thing you see today, where public schools are going to lose a lot of money through their lack of competition because they're expecting money given to them like some baby bird looking for a worm from the mother bird. The state and the federal government's going to drop it right in their mouth, and they're just going to consume with outrageously high wages that consume all these school budgets, and expect the taxpayers to keep throwing endless amounts of money at a bad product. And that's what they refuse to see in this new school board at Lakota. And I wasn't surprised. Maybe there's an opportunity. There's another election coming up where there's 3 seats that are going to be up. Maybe there could be a chance for some Republicans to go there and manage the district. But whatever happens with the future of any school board, it's going to have to be people who can sell the district and its value to the public. And they're going to have to do that as a competitive model, because that's how the future is going to be. It is not going to be where they just open their mouths and in drops a worm from the state and the federal government, and they play victim to keep getting more. And when they don't get more, they just go back to the taxpayers and raise taxes and throw more money at the teachers' unions that are completely ineffective. Those days are over, everybody. They're never coming back. Never coming back. And when they voted to go forward with this lawsuit, first thing I thought was, well, they just blew themselves up. There's no one's going to have a sympathy for them again. Not that I care that much, because I don't really like the product anyway. But that decision right there, I think, sunk them for decades. People will not forget it. And I won't have to do a whole lot to remind them of it, because people have genuinely a bad impression of them anyway. And they're going to remember these things, especially that decision on March 12th, when they did this kind of fake meeting where they tried to have some group consensus, and they brought some legislators in so they could really just say, well, look, they're dug in. We have no choice but to vote for this legal challenge. And so it was a kind of a setup, and they did what they did. But I thought our legislators in our area did a really good job of making the argument, and didn't make it easy for them. But they did what they did, and I think it pretty much sunk Lakota as a district. And they're not prepared for the next wave of all these cuts that are going to come from the Trump administration, from the Department of Education, and moving all that to the states. These people are not prepared to deal with that. And I tried to warn them, and it's bad on them that they didn't listen. And I think it's too late for them now. So tough luck. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.